Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick, and today, well, it's that time of year, isn't it? We are planting garlic. Exciting times. So, quick disclaimer, because obviously I've gone on and on about planting within this black plastic. I actually can't plant. Well, you can plant alliums. They tend to grow really big under the black plastic, but they don't tend to sprout and they can be lost. So you have to take that into consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and plant it in this wood chip bed. I'm doing a few different types of beds as like an experiment. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. We do this at home, it works really well, but originally I'm going to have to pull out all of these weeds. Because there is no black plastic on this, you do get more weeds, not as many as, say, for example, if there was just plain soil here, you'd get a lot more, but you do get like the stubborn perennial weeds, for example nettles, and you do get the grasses. However, they're super easy to pull out, just like the no dig method. I believe this method is called Back to Eden. I actually prefer this to the compost method so far. I don't know why I really like it for most things, okay? Not carrots and things like parsnips that need to be in compost. It's absolutely useless for that. Everything else has been really fantastic. This small bed, got 20 kilos of potatoes out of it this year, so it does work super well with even potatoes. They grow on top of the soil in the wood chip. They grow super well, so it is something to bear in mind if you can't get a lot of access to manure, etc., because wood chip is free and it tends to be delivered to you. It is a easy way of having that done. And if you don't know anywhere and you're thinking, what do you mean it's free? If you phone up any sort of tree surgeon and ask them, hey guys, what are you doing with your wood chip? Do you want a place that you don't have to pay to get rid of it? Most people will say yes. However, there are a few companies that do charge for delivery costs, or they do charge quite a lot for the delivery, so just bear that in mind. But you can get it for free. We get it delivered free here, but of course you get whole leaf, which is absolutely beautiful for gardening because it feeds those worms. You know, I'm very pro feeding worms and making sure that you build that soil structure. I think of wood chip a little bit like a 3-course meal. You have your starter, that's inhaled in a second, isn't it? You've got your main, which will last you a very long time, and then you've got your dessert at the end. So you've got the leaf, which is very, very quickly, within days, the worms have taken that and broken that down. You've got small twigs, large twigs, and they will break down over time. And then you have things like mycelium that will be spreading throughout the wood chip and really working in a symbiotic relationship with your plants. And basically your plants will give them sugars, and your mycelium, or the mycelium within the wood chip, will be giving it other nutrients that it cannot get otherwise. So you have to think of it like a network, a little bit like the World Wide Web, where the mycelium is telling them all different information, things like that, because they're able to produce natural defences to stop insects attacking them and things like that. We remember that from doing the experiment with the aspirin, which I just thought was awesome. I am going to be clearing up a little bit of the weeds before I start. I like to do this every once in a while. I do find that more that you weed, the easier it is becoming. As you can see, I repeatedly keep stinging myself with stinging nettles. These gloves, I've talked about them before, Fiverr, Asda. Well, these are really, really good, so you can't feel anything through these gloves. But the problem is I find it hard to move my fingers within the gloves because they're so thick. So anything that I have to use, like fine motor skills, like pulling out weeds from the base, I find it very difficult within the glove. So yeah, I keep stinging myself because the stinging nettles in this bed, because I keep picking them, are very tiny. There you go, I've just stung myself again. So my fingers were really, really hurting by the end of this bed. Now, I am working on being a bit more organised, believe it or not, because you can see the sticks and stuff over that I'm still like getting to the process of putting away. now that the harvesting's all done for the year, I can focus on different things, sorting out the sticks and sorting out the tidiness of the allotment. But when the harvest is coming in, I honestly just don't have enough time for it. I know it sounds really weird, but it is the truth. So I'm going to plan to kind of spend about 10 minutes every time I come down here doing a bit of a tidy up. I do need to work on my organisation skills, I know, and it gets to the point where I spend most of the time looking for one item that I should have had already put away, etc. And now that I don't have the excuse of harvesting, it is going to be something that I'm needing to focus on. I do have a few things that I still need to plant out, but apart from that, I'm very excited to have all of this sort of bow on it. This is a dipper. This was actually here when I moved into the allotment. When you do get your allotment, if you don't have them, I think most of you guys do have your allotments, congratulations. But if you get one of these, then these are really awesome for doing bulbs. So it is literally just some old random tool that's been sharpened into a slight point. This ground, remember, this ground was rock hard across the way. Even in the next bed, the ground is rock hard, but because we've got this wood chip on the ground and the worms coming up to the level of the wood chip and keep going back down, you've got really soft soil. Look how easily this is going into the soil. I'm telling you for now, right, that if I did this in the next bed, it wouldn't go in. I'd probably snap it. So it does make a massive, massive impact. Remember that there is no right way of gardening. Everybody does it differently, and it's awesome any which way you want to do it. And like I said, I'm just going to sort of do every which way and see which one's the best one for me personally. I do like using the compost and things like that, but it is getting it, okay? It is a fairly hard journey getting that here. If I can get wood chip that is delivered to me, that is going to be my easiest way to go, and it does improve the soil, but it takes a little while for it to improve the soil. Now I'm just breaking up these garlics. Garlic is probably my favourite thing to eat. It's probably not my favourite thing to grow because it's one of those set it and forget it. It's like the slow cooker of things that you grow in the garden, really low maintenance, but you put it into the ground and that is it. This bed is going to do nothing now. It's going to sit there until summer. So until summer you have nothing to grow. You might be able to put some cabbages in at the end of the month, or maybe some carrots or something like that. Not in this bed because it's wood chip, but some beets or something like that within this bed. But this is going to be primarily here for your garlic. Now, if you're anything like me, I love garlic so much. We grow like 100 and something cloves of garlic, and you just basically break them off. I never ever buy garlic seeds anymore. I bought them the first year, and then basically I make sure that I keep all my best garlics. I mean, look at the size of these garlics, right? I keep my best garlics for my seed garlic. I keep all the rubbish ones for myself. So if you ever grow a really rubbish garlic and you think, wow, that wasn't even worth growing, they're the ones that we eat, and all the good ones get saved for seed. Now, I think it's really important to have enough seed for me each year, and I don't want to have to buy it. Seed garlic's super expensive, so you can actually grow garlic from shop bought garlic. I would get the organic one because I think they spray it. I'm pretty sure you can grow the one that isn't organic as long as it's not been smoked or anything like that, or cooked in some way, because obviously that will kill the garlic clove. Now, I've never done that before, but I did buy it once a good few years ago, so that I had a seed store of garlic. Now, I will make sure that I have enough for myself because I love garlic. We use probably a bulb every time I cook. Every time I cook something, I'll put an entire bulb in, and then when I, say for example, I make pasta sauce, I'll put in like tons of garlic in it, and then when I open the can, I'll add extra garlic into it because I love garlic, okay? So I will make sure that we have enough for ourselves, and I will make garlic flavoured oil as well. I love garlic. I could never be a vampire, basically, because I love garlic. And basically, I will make sure that all the best bulbs, all of the really big ones, the beautiful ones, the ones that store the best, will be used as my seed garlic, okay? All of the rubbish ones will be kept for me. I'm so lucky, I know. And this is because if you grow the best garlic, yeah, and you eat it, then it's gone. But if you grow the best garlic and you use that next year for your seed, every year you get better genetics, okay? So I want two things really. Three actually. So I want three things. I want bulbs that store well. bulbs that grow big, and I want bulbs that have a really fantastic flavour, because that's why I'm growing them. Okay, so when you buy your bulbs from the grocery store or from the supermarket, whatever you call it, you will get bulbs that store well. Okay, that's their primary focus. They don't care about anything else. They just want bulbs that store well. Now, you might want to have more flavourable or bigger bulbs or whatever. That is up to you. Start handling your own genetics and deciding to save seed. You can make those decisions for yourself. Do you want one that looks nice? Do you want one that does this, that, and the other? Do you think scapes are important? They are. They're yummy. Do you like soft necks, hard necks? I favour hard neck varieties. I find them store better than soft neck varieties. I have a lot of issues with rot with soft neck varieties, so something I take into consideration. Now, what works for me won't necessarily work for you, because our climate and the way that we store our garlic will be different. I store mine in the garage, tends to be quite damp, so I need something that will withstand them sort of conditions. Whereas if you store yours differently, or your climate is different to mine, because remember, we've got microclimates as well, so even if you're down the road from me, your climate's going to be completely different to mine. Okay, so bear that in mind. Now, I really like the hard neck ones, because like I said, they store really well, great flavour, and they are really easy to pull up. They get the scape, which I personally think is a bonus. I love scapes sauteed. I like making them into sauce. I use them just like garlic, and it feels like I'm actually getting something from the ground, because sometimes with garlic you feel like you're sacrificing a piece of area for a very long time without anything sort of reward. But because I've got my scapes, I really enjoy them, and I like them probably as much as asparagus, so they're really important for me to have. Now, like I was saying, this might be different for you. Another one I really like, not technically garlic, but it is elephant garlic. I believe that is a leek of some description, but I really enjoy that one. They get big. Okay, I am going to be sowing some of these in this video. Like I said, I haven't bought them this year, okay, because they're super expensive. So the first year I grew them, I didn't even eat one, right? I grew them, and then I kept the best seed for the next year. Okay, and then I kept the best seed for the next year, and then I kept the best seed for the next year. They say that elephant garlic is perennial. Now, if you see any corns which look like teeny tiny little cloves, you can go ahead and just stick them back in the ground, and they will give you a bulb next year, okay, which doesn't have any of the quarters in it, because it does take 2 years to grow an elephant garlic from a corn. Now, if you go ahead and pull them up accidentally or whatever, don't worry, because you can eat them just like a garlic. I tend to use a whole one of them in anything I'm cooking. Remember, I love garlic, but elephant garlic is very mild. It has a very mild garlicky flavour, so I enjoy eating a huge bowl within my cooking, because I just love garlic so much, and I think that the more the merrier sort of thing. But if it's something that you're concerned about, obviously have a look into it yourself. But I really recommend that, because obviously you get the corns. I always leave the corns in the garden beds, so that I just get volunteers every year. Now, it is expensive. It's way more expensive than the normal garlic. But like I said, if you're disciplined with it, the first year, do not harvest it to eat it. Store it, plant it out again. Make sure all of them corns are left in there. You can leave them in a little row. They will come out. To be honest, the corns will be left behind as well. They call them a perennial for a reason. So try to put them in an area where you think, okay, if that grows, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You have to be careful if you're growing any decorative alliums, okay, because you do grow them for flowers. I have them in the allotment as well. They will be an issue if you pull them up and eat them. They do not settle in your tummy very well, okay? Another thing is, when you're growing garlic is very thin and narrow. It looks a little bit like a leek or grass, if you've never seen what grass looks like, I guess. But what my point is it can't overshadow any of the ground. Like, for example, a squash. When you're growing pumpkins or a squash, you're like, okay, I've got to battle the weeds for a little while, but then there's not going to be an issue because you can't see the grass. the ground at all. If you remember last year, I planted my squash about 5 foot apart, and everybody down the allotment was like, "Oh my goodness, why have you done that? You're wasting that whole bed." I was like, "No, dude, it's going to be filled up." And then I started second guessing myself, like, "Oh, am I like not putting enough in this bed? Like, am I wasting space?" But guys, I could barely walk through that bed when it was in full production. So remember that you do need to keep on top of them weeds, okay? I always get Bob, when he comes down the allotment, I always say to him, "Oh, can you weed the bed?" And it's always really funny because he tends to pull out half the onions and half the garlic, bless him. So just make sure that once it's grown, you make sure you understand what it looks like before you harvest. I think I've told this really embarrassing story. It was like my first year gardening on my own. I was like early 20s, right? And I decided to grow some onions, and I waited for them to sprout, and I was like, right, I'm going to do some weeding. Why is all this grass here? And I went ahead and pulled out all the grass, yeah? Don't want grass in this bed. No, it was onions. And ever since then, I vowed to myself, I was like, right, I will always make sure that everything that I sow in the ground, because I rarely ever sow anything directly in the soil, maybe radishes or carrots. As you can see, there's a line of carrots there. But it was so funny to me because I was just like waiting for these onions, and I went ahead and pulled them all out. So hindsight's 2020. I could have kicked myself. It is funny in looking back on it, but I vowed to myself at that point in my life, I was like, right, I'm going to make sure that I always double check that I've got everything, and what I'm sowing is what I'm sowing, and what the true leaves look like. So wait until the true leaves come out, and then you're like, oh, okay, I see what that means. This is more of a bulb, so if you see anything that looks like a bulb coming up, then it's probably that, okay? If it's not, then you can either wait, pull it out when it gets a little bit bigger. Now, I find that if you're growing in ground the first year, even if it's no dig, right, I find it very difficult to pull out weeds, right? It's like 2 hands, body weight behind you, very difficult. But now this ground has been worked and really, really fantastic, because remember, this bed that I'm currently on, this is the one that I've been putting all of the chicken bedding on. Do you remember? So every time we have chickens and that, like once a year or something, I pull it out because we're doing deep bedding method, right? I put it down here. Now, because I've had these huge flowers, these are cosmos, aren't they gorgeous? They are going though, sadly. You have to be cruel to be kind, and I need the room. Anyway, because I've had these big, big flowers, I haven't been able to see and lay down any more chicken bedding. I do have some for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now that I have a little bit of room, basically. But you can see how much that straw has broken down. Okay, remember, you do want to use straw and not hay. Doesn't matter if you pop hay down, but you do get a bit of free weeding with it, because hay is grass and grass has grass seeds. So just bear that in mind, so that when you go ahead and put it down, you're making an informed decision, because there's nothing worse, right? I do have to say, my birds do like quite a lot of sunflowers, so I do get quite a few volunteer sunflowers. Not that I'm complaining, they're all homegrown. I actually grow my sunflowers to feed to the birds, so it's like a never-ending cycle. So I feed them, they scatter them everywhere. I use their bedding on the garden and down here. I think it's a bit of duck bedding as well. I sometimes bring it from home. I think we've talked about it before. If I don't use it down here, I will bring it and use it at home. I really like using things that I'm not paying for, okay? Call me cheap, it's fine. We all know I am. But basically, if it's a free resource, I'm very excited about it. So anything with a bit of fertiliser in it, like the chicken manure or duck manure bedding, then obviously with the chicken it is hot compost, not cold compost. So you do have to make sure it's well broken down before you put it on the bed. So go ahead, stick it in a pile, whatever you want to do with it, before you put it on the beds, because it will have a impact. But honestly, this soil is so light and fluffy. I've never dug anything. I'm way too lazy for that, guys. But this soil is light and fluffy because it has so much organic matter in it. The worms have been churning it, etc, etc. So it's been a bit of a dream. Pulling these weeds out is very, very, very easy. As you can see, I'm just using one hand. I'm not like putting any effort in there really. They're not very deep in that soil because the bottom of the soil has not been disturbed, and they're only things that have landed in from, say, other allotments or where I've not been very tidy and I have let the weeds get on top of myself, okay? I am pulling out some of the things that I've sown. I struggled with getting my peppers sort of established in this bed because I kind of overcrowded it, and I did see that one of them was like finally like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I was like, no, you're not, out you come. So I'm slowly going to go through this whole allotment, weed it and fertilise it and stuff like that. I am going to go ahead and put some wood chip on the wood chip bed, and I'm going to go ahead and put some more straw down on this bed, because I would like to see the comparison between this and the no dig bed. I have noticed with the straw bed that when I sowed carrot seeds, none of them came up, and I was thinking to myself, well, I have that same issue with the wood chip bed, so I didn't think nothing of it, and I was like, well, that's just life, isn't it? I just need to make sure that I have a compost bed that I put my carrots in. Well, interesting enough, now this this straw is broken down so extremely, right? You can see, you can barely see the straw on top at all. Well, all the carrots have sprouted now in their little rows, so I thought that was very interesting. You can see a little bit there with whispery growth both near that little blue semicircle there. But I just thought it was very interesting, considering it is so long since I've sown them seeds. So it's worth bearing in mind that if you are growing in a straw bale bed, that might be an issue for you. I've never been able to do that thing where you scrape it apart, let them germinate and then move it back over, because I find it that the wind just does that for me or whatever. So it was quite interesting. I also got quite a few beans out of this, and I was quite excited. We had those for dinner today. We had a big piece of beef roasted with some vegetables like carrots and things, all from the allotment, and that was very exciting for me. As you can see, I have that cabbage behind me. I'm very excited about that because it's like a quadruple head. I don't think it's meant to be like that, but it's very exciting. So I'm waiting for that to sort of head up, and then I'm going to take that as well. And I've of course planted some of my cabbages again today, so it's very exciting. I try to have something to harvest all the way through the year. I'm still working on that. I feel like I have mastered the summer garden. However, I do feel like I sacrifice a little bit too much my winter and fall garden for the summer garden. So it's something that I need to sort of bear in mind, because to be honest, those extra weeks were completely wasted because I've lost most of them tomatoes I harvested. So maybe it would be better to harvest them a lot earlier before blight got its evil teeth in. And I know that to be true, but it's something that I'm working on, okay? Because I do love having a decent harvest. Now, when I'm looking through these bulbs, I am making sure that I'm only going to be sowing the absolute best bulbs, okay? These bulbs that I'm sowing are going to be the biggest and the best that I have available, because once again, I'm ensuring that the genetics says that they are the best each year, okay? I'm going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger bulbs. I don't want small bulbs. Small bulbs are annoying to peel, and I just prefer less segments but bigger segments so that I have to peel less. It's important to me anyway. If you're okay with teeny weeny ones, that's up to you, okay? Not that I won't use them. Like I said, I will keep all of the teeny weeny ones and I will use those instead of instead of keeping those and using up the big ones, okay? I want to sow the big ones. So each one of these holes, I'm going to be putting a garlic in, and they're roughly about 6 inches, 4 inches apart, depending on I think it's 6 inches, and they're going down in a hole. They will get a sprinkling of different fertilisers, hormeal, and they will get some chicken manure, and then they will get chicken manure on top from my chickens, this bed, and probably some duck manure and some hay. So we're choosing to use granule fertiliser. I think it's great. It does break down over time, so it's not a quick relief. But I think it's better because it's organic, and once again we're feeding the biota of the ground, not the plant, okay? So we want the worms, we want the microbes being super well fed. I don't mind that breaking down over time. I don't want a quick sort of fast meal for these guys. I want them to have a healthy meal over a long time, okay? And I know that fertilizer can actually damage the microbiome, and it depends how you're looking at it. If you want to have really healthy plants, go ahead, that's fine, use liquid fertilizer or artificial liquid fertilizer or artificial fertilizer, that's fine. But like I said, what I'm focusing on is soil health, okay? The plants I'm growing is more like a byproduct of what I'm doing. I'm growing soil. So if you put it from my point of view, that's what we're choosing to do, okay? I'm not saying any other way is wrong, but that's what we're choosing to do here. So we're going to be focusing on the granule fertilizers and manure and things like that, and building the structure of the soil and building the structure of the microbiome over the next few years. So it is a very long process, I know, but we think it is an important one. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and if you've got to this point in the video, please go ahead and press that like button. All right, I will see you in the next one, and I hope that all your gardening is going fantastically and everything is just being wonderful. I do really appreciate you guys, and I would like to say thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.